Okay. Are there any adjustments? On the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or are there items that need to be corrected and changed?
I just had a question. I think it might have been in the original agenda, the discussion between Woodlands Facility. It's item 13, the agenda. Should that be 6?
Are you talking about item 13?
Yeah.
Oh, in the minute.
In the
I'm
minute,
sorry.
because we didn't have a discussion last time.
Well, we did have a bit of a discussion about it.
Yeah, but, okay. But it's 6.
I mean,
It's us.
right.
Yeah. Oh, I see, I see, and,
It's not 36, it's 6.
well, there was.
No, there was discussion
discussion
36.
about that, but
Yeah.
It's misleading the way it's written. It should be 6,
We had discussion
Discussion.
about installation with 1 and 36.
We did.
Yes.
but
We
it should
did.
be 1 and 6, and
One
then,
in 36.
and then 36, it says, in the next, it was mentioned that MUD 36 has also expressed interest. So I think the first paragraph should say 1 and 6.
Maybe we'll just include all 3.
That would be the easiest thing.
Okay, so I'll
Just-
add MUD 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the front.
So I move to approve the consent agenda with the changes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Thank you. Item number 10, to receive the regular monthly SJR Woodlands Division Report, pages 18 through 36.
All right, reports in your packet, nothing out of the ordinary, no violations, don't have anything to add, but be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
See anything?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Item number 11, consider an act on pay application number 6 for the retail wastewater collection system rehabilitation year 2, pages 37 through 44.
Okay, on that project, we have a pay estimate number 6. Total pay estimate was for $130,000, 427 and 31 cents. Of that, MUD 6 share of that was $7,393.66. So I need a motion to approve pay estimate number 6 for your share.
Do I have a motion?
I so moved.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 12.
Same project, just to, I need authorization. We have a change order number 2, which is to extend the time period of the contract by 90 days, moving its completion date to June. So I need a motion to approve of that change order.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item number 13, receive and discuss a supplemental agreement with SJRA for issuance of bonds in connection with Tier 1 water line renewal projects.
Okay, if you'll look for this big foldout. Yep. This is the 10-year timeline for the water renewal projects included, of which are Tier 1 and Tier 2 projects. As you recall, there were 5 projects coming out of the HDR report that were slated to be done in the next 10 years. This timeline shows that SJ provided this timeline. And then attached to it is some bond performance for various options. If you recall, the first project would be Town Center. The first bond issue that would be considered would be for the remaining engineering and land acquisition for that project, as well as the construction for that project. And then also the engineering for Woodlands Parkway. And then the scope of the Woodlands Parkway project would include the base project, but not include the supplemental lines at this time. Last we talked about this project, if you recall, we were talking about some optional spurs or extensions. That the term that's being kind of used as supplemental lines. That's the same thing. And so what we talked about at that time was we would split this up into the base projects. And then at the time of the project, we would identify, do additional testing to see if those spurs needed to be added into the base project at that time. So the first two bond issues for those two projects would not include any of the supplemental lines.
Mhm.
And then they would be evaluated for the future for projects 3, 4, and 5 as part of projects 3, 4, and 5. So the 28.7 first bond that you see there, the 27.1 in the colored box in the middle, the debt pro forma on those two bonds are attached on the next two sheets. You can see the one total bond would be around 32 and change, 32 million, and the other one would be 30 or so. And so corresponding with that in your packet is the draft of the supplemental agreement, which each MUD would enter into to authorize SDRA to sell their bonds to cover those two projects. So we did not have action on that today. If you so choose, we can switch that to discuss and or act on at the next meeting, if you so choose. But that's where we are.
I think,
Since we're not acting. today.
no, we're not acting,
Okay,
but we can put it on the agenda, next agenda to act on if you'd like.
I think we should.
Okay,
I guess, Brian, you've been through this amendment.
I have, and so, this form of agreement tracks the original time, the first time that we had to do a bond issue for rehab and rehabilitation back in 2016. Y'all were on the board at that time, but we crossed this issue for the first time back then about needing to have a mechanism to allow for bonding of large ticket rehab and rehabilitation items that had a longer useful life that it made sense to tie to, maturity schedule of a bond issue. The main changes from that form to this one, the supplemental this time anticipates there being two bond issues. Back in 2016, there was only one. So we've got language in there to break it into two bond issues. Two, the provision that was in the last one that allowed for capitalized interest up to 2 years is not included. So there won't be, the initial interest that will be accruing on the bonds for the first 2 years included as part of the par amount. That will help to reduce the interest costs of this bond issue. So that's the second difference. The third, the maximum maturity schedule was requested to be reduced by the River Authority from 30 years to 25 years. And actually the proposed numbers that you have in your packet there are for bond issues with a 20-year maturity schedule. That also cuts down on the amount of interest. And then finally, the language at the end of section 4 that provides the Woodlands Water Audit Committee with the authority to provide input to the River Authority on the pricing terms when those bonds are issued, because again, they're broken into two tranches. So that, first bond issue could be, a year or less from now, but the second bond issue may be, 3 or 4 years from now, just depending on, the progress on the first tranche of projects, or the first project. So those are the main differences between the two. Otherwise, the structure is the same as what we had put into place back in 2016.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
so we'll add that to the next agenda. Perfect. Item 14, discuss the results of the SFDU audit.
Yes. So for the last 6 months or so, Tim and I have been going through all of the SFDUEs as they relate to the service area number 1 for the treatment plant number 1. We were tasked with confirming land uses, confirming that there weren't any abnormalities. We didn't find any of that. Cleaned up a few land uses for tracts that have changed since, the 6th and final was done in 2017. So almost 10 years ago. So we did that audit. And as you can see on the map, this is the service area. And that's essentially, the southeastern portion of the Woodlands. We will be going forward over the next few months to complete the same evaluation over the rest of the Woodlands. And that'll give us a real good, this was built now in a modern Esri GIS database. that we can use for mapping, we can use for database, asset management, a lot of the different things. So once we have that complete for the rest of the woodlands, we'll be able to use this to really track development going forward. But for this, it was focused on service area number 1. You can see on the one pager there, kind of where we were at the sixth and final, kind of what was looked at in the 2024 Reese-Nichols report, and then kind of where we are today in terms of projected allocation in the future. So, and then the final numbers in the bottom box are just kind of more just for reference. Our last 5 years of average on the plan are just over 3 MGD, and then that 217 and 200 are those design parameters of gallons per day per a single family connection, which is integral into how to size the plant. So next step would be for Estrella to come back to you all to the MUDs to propose next steps forward for re-engaging Carrillo to look at this data as well as finish their evaluation of the plant.
So once this is in their hands, they can go complete everything. Okay, because I got the numbers now.
Got the numbers,
Yeah.
and yep, we did coordinate with Howard Hughes to confirm, their expected allocation needs for the undeveloped properties. And most of them are in Metro MUD, for the most part.
Item number 15, discussion regarding the consolidation with the Woodlands Municipal Utility District number 1 and Montgomery County Municipal Utility District number 36. And I asked Walt to be here because he's kind of contacted me about putting this on our agenda and talking about it. So I want us to hear his input and then we can have our discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here today with you. If we look over at what's happened recently, the Woodland celebrated its 50th year, and a lot of people, talked about how great things worked and how we progressed so over the years to where we are today. And I would say that the MUDs had a very big role into that. When you look at the infrastructure that was laid out there, the money that was provided for the construction to go, and I think, we can all pat ourselves on the back saying that, we played an integral role in the success of the Woodlands. But I think we have to look at where we are now. We're built out, basically. The way that we're structured, we have 50 MUD directors. You have 10 trustees. You have 11 meetings that are being conducted. And is that really what's best for our residents out there? Going through your agenda, it's the same agenda that we went through yesterday. The only difference on ours is that we did the Pledge of Allegiance to the flags, but otherwise your agenda and ours are exactly the same. So does that make a lot of sense to have 5 MUD directors, 6 people from Woodlands Water Association, 5 people from SGRA, outside legal counsel? And what is our budget? 75 million a year. And so we have 11 meetings. The township is like 180 million and they had 2. The meetings. So, should we look at what's best for the residents? Should we look at how do we consolidate? How can we reduce costs? And I think, one of the ways is to look at how can we combine the MUDs? How can we look at, and there are a lot of things that we have to look at from a legal standpoint and can we actually do it? But, I'd like to propose that we sit down and we try to ascertain, is there a possibility that we can merge together? We did it with MUD 40 and MUD 2, and it worked fine. The residents did miss a beat. And I would contend in the future, maybe we even look at, is there still a role for the MUDs? Is that something that we even need to have? Maybe do we just need to disband all the MUDs and turn it over to a elected board of trustees, kind of like the township has? And it would eliminate an awful lot of costs, and I think we would still represent the residents out there. I happen to look at the structure that we're in right now and kind of think outside the box. Is there some way that we can do things differently out there? We've been doing it like this for 50 years, I guess you would say. Is that the best way to to move forward for the next 50 years, for the next generation. So I would like to propose to you that, talking among yourselves and see if you'd like to sit down and see if there is a way that we can maybe merge. We are going to look at MUD 36 also. They do have some outstanding bond. So, you know, we don't have any bonds. You don't have any bonds. Our tax structures are pretty well the same. So, you know, I'd like to propose to you that we sit down and figure if there's some way that we can combine our thought processes together and, you know, offer the residents out there something different at a cheaper cost.
So is your current board in favor of a consolidation?
All but one so far.
In general, I still support at least the discussion. I mean, I think, yeah, there is generally a different need now than there was when the MUDs were formed. I mean, I think in my mind, it's purely a matter of us evaluating whether there is any sort of benefit to our constituents. And I think we at least have a responsibility to evaluate whether those benefits are sufficient, financial or other. When it comes to MUD 30, I mean, I've been fairly transparent with my feelings on how MUD 36 has made some revisions in their approach over the past couple of years. I mean, I do have some concerns that at some point their unwillingness or inability to handle certain maintenance needs could impact other MUDs on the same system. I guess my biggest concern would be the alignment or lack thereof at the trustee level and whether this would potentially dilute our influence or whatnot ahead of some of the more major infrastructure discussions that are taking place. But that said, I think we talked on it last month. I think the timing of a ballot measure would probably mean this would happen after most of those or all of those major discussions would be made, right?
Based on my understanding of the 2 and 40 consolidation, that took like 18 to 24 months to get through the entire process. Some of that was, I think, learning curve, so it probably goes a little quicker than that now that it's been done before, but yeah, it would be at least, and I think my understanding is when and if that or went to a vote, that would need to be at a November election. Is that right, Brian?
It would need to be at one or the other.
Either one?
It could be at either one. It's just a matter of how long will you have, directors, from both districts until you have a, subsequent director election to be able to whittle the overall board from 10 to 5. Because initially you would have, assuming it's 2 districts that are consolidated, you would have 10 directors for a period of time until the next May uniform election date. So if it's November, it's a shorter period of time. If it's May, it's, a longer period of time.
I mean, I've always been in favor of consolidations, but I'm also concerned or want to make sure that we address any unintended consequences that this might have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see any risk in us at least having some preliminary discussions. I mean, in my mind, I'd be curious, like looking at some of the info that was shared, I would be curious if Woodlands Water could potentially provide an update to that table number 7 that was in the 2021 memo. That gave kind of the estimate of administrative savings. But I would also be curious if we could potentially break it out by MUD, not necessarily as a whole. Do we know how much we spent on the efforts in 2021?
I'm sure y'all can probably pull the election costs for those 2 districts. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It was, I do recall it was held at the same time as the township and corporation election, which,
It was $40,000. The election cost us $40,000. That was a bill we received from the county.
contested elections now are not cheap. I mean, any contested election, regardless of whether it's for a consolidation or not. If you have a contested election, it's not unusual for those to run 40 grand now.
Wow, I didn't know.
I'm sure what to do is come up with the total cost and disseminate it across all the various parties.
Participants there are, so if there's more participants, your cost could be a little bit lower
Yeah.
with the county. I mean, you still have your cost of producing the election
Right.
documents, getting them translated, all that stuff, but in terms of the shared cost pro rata, that is just a function of how many other entities have an election on the uniform election date that you're using.
I think the last election was defeated by 14 votes, but that also took the same time that the incorporation election was going on. So I'm sure there were some people confused about what they were really voting for and what they weren't voting on.
That was my impression. I've been down this trail before with Bob Lilac. And I put most of that memorandum together. And we worked on the savings part of it as best as we could. And there would be administrative savings, of course, but in terms of other costs, maintenance and operations, we could not locate a benefit in that area of significance. And the other challenge, as I saw, was I'm going to say this nicely, the wording on the ballot. The increase without limit is sort of emblazoned in my memory. And that, I think, required, I understand.
Well, it's never gonna go away.
That's what would have got some people's attention, and it was MUD 6 voters that didn't seem too happy, by 14, that didn't seem too thrilled with that part of it. And yeah, tied into the incorporation election, you're absolutely right. I think there was some confusion in people's minds. Consolidation, corporation,
Yeah.
So it's a timing issue. It did take us about a year and a half or so to pull everything together through the various drafts and what have you to get the wording right. However, having said all that, although the last effort to have the proposal of consolidation, it failed, but you've got to put these ideas to the voting public. But perhaps we could have done a better job of communicating, which I've become quite a bit more sensitive to over the past few years. So
I would agree with you on that. I think, probably we could look at how do we communicate this to the residents, but, just one more pitch on this is, we're totally built out. We're all interconnected now. So, what happens up in MUD 46, I don't think this sounds crude, but somebody was telling me, if I flush the toilet up in 46, by the time it gets down to the wastewater treatment plant, it's been through 5 different MUDs. So what happens in one MUD is affected in the other MUD. And you look at the Bear Branch Dam as a prime example. There's 5 MUDs that are basically supposedly responsible for that dam. But anything that happens at that dam affects all of the woodlands.
Yeah.
So it's just not those 5 MUDs. I mean, we're all affected. So, if we combine resources, combine minds and everything together, how can we look at the infrastructure we have and how do we make sure that it's operating 50 years from now? And if it does have to be replaced, how do we disseminate those costs out there and make it a lot more reasonable than just one MUD looking at it? Because like I said, everything in the woodlands is now affected by all of us. It's by the whole thing out there. It's not the individual parts anymore. And I think, that's what we need to look at.
And I think there's certainly some outreach and communication mechanisms now that didn't exist.
I was just going to say that we have much better communication with our residents now than we've
Yeah.
done in the past. So I think.
I would say we at least have responsibility to evaluate it if it's
I
going to
totally agree
potentially
with that.
benefit. I think there's some differences in the administrative cost aspect that have changed. But I'd also be curious to see just an updated side by side in terms of cash positions, assets, debt, and then maybe some feedback from Eric on, deferred maintenance I know is an issue, at least in one of the MUDs potentially. And then maybe a forward-looking 5-year, 10-year on what the expected maintenance needs are. I don't necessarily want to provoke this and then find out that there's some maintenance coming our way that, Those are my
Maybe we
thoughts.
could stepwise look at it too, just looking at the MUD 1 and MUD 6 consolidation before we look at MUD
Well, yeah.
1, 6, and 36.
I think the preliminary info, we might as well get all three. I think then we can decide if we want to move forward with the discussion. Or
Yeah,
not.
the reason that I recommended putting 36 into the mix is, yes, they have some debt, but their tax rate is the closest to the two of y'all. Now you're in the fours, they're at around 3, so that's not a huge difference. And even if, as a part of this, their voters included because there's going to need to be a uniform tax rate that fits everybody. And since they're not that far away, it could be that that extra penny or so that they might consider could address some of their maintenance things that you're concerned with. I haven't run the numbers on what that would create in terms of revenue for them or the three together or whatever, but I saw that as a possible opportunity to solve kind of all these issues at the same time. That's the only reason that I kind of threw them in there, because they're real close and have a need. So not to bring the others down, but to help them get up.
So what's the direction to?
Mud One is working with a former director that was able to do those numbers before to maybe do some of that on the side. So we're working with him to get him some information so he can do those. I think it'd be valuable to have those run, get that analysis done, and then maybe suggest have a 3 mud meeting or whatever you want to call it, just to get the directors together to talk as a group. If I think 1 and 6 will likely be amenable to that, and 36 has seemed to be, they haven't taken it off the table yet. It's just, last month was the first time that they'd even heard it. So I didn't really hear a whole lot of negativity around it in that meeting. So they could very well, I think they'd be willing to at least go to the step you're talking about, at least to look at the numbers and see what that might look like.
Does this board want to see those comparisons before we have a meeting with all 3 of the MUDs on an individual?
It makes sense.
So
I'd like to propose one thing. If we do have some people working on numbers and everything, if you would give us a point of contact, that we can have one person we can work with, and then that person can bring it back to your board.
I'd like to be that person.
Seems appropriate.
I'm sorry, who would that be?
Deborah.
You be the contact? Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much. Attorney's report,
Nothing additional.
general manager's report.
All right, just a couple of things. Point you to page. Very colorful page. Usually it's comes right out on it. There we go, page 71. We've updated these to page 71 and 72. These are some graphs that we use in a lot of material that we put out. We update these every couple of years just to kind of give you an insight into, what the average water bill looks like compared to the area, and what the average tax bills look like or tax rates look like for, compared to other months in the area. So updated that. I think last month I talked about hiring some ditch crew individuals, and they're on board now. We've onboarded them and going through some training, and they're starting to do some work in the ditches right now. So that's positive moving forward. Want to let you know, remind you that our first mowing of the year is going to be next month across the woodlands. So you'll start to see the mowers come in. We do that quarterly, but they'll start doing that next month in April. Also, we're in the middle of system flushing, so you may see from time to time hydrants being flushed. Nope, don't be alarmed. It's routine maintenance for us. So those are kind of the main things I wanted to point out in our packet. Of course, the packet has significant information in the GM report. So certainly if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. That's all I had specifically on the general management report, other than the communications.
Can I just make a comment? Or actually, I want to really thank yourself and Kim on the work on the SFDUEs. I think it's timely and it was critical to have a workable database instead of what had happened. And I, for one, really appreciate that effort.
Thank you.
Afternoon. 67 for your communications report. The first item up top there just points out our major topics for the past month. One of those being the MUD annual updates. So yours was not included in your water bill, you might have noticed. There's a reason for that. Just a couple days before we went to print, we were informed by the printer that they had a limitation in the number of different MUDs they could attach an insert to. We're working on that solution so that doesn't happen going forward. Your update did go out via e-blast, social media. It's on your MUD page, and we will be attaching it to next month's water bill. Thank you for your patience with that. We've also been pushing out that community survey. We do that annually, gauging knowledge levels, favorability ratings. We've got another week or so on that. We're going to let that run. Got a really good response rate, but we're going to get a little more time. And then I'll bring the findings to you at next month's meeting. We have some examples. Oh, by the way, I do want to note that there's QR there. So if you haven't gone through that survey, you'd like to take a look at it. Page 67.
Oh, okay.
You can still access it using that QR. It's also on our homepage as well. Some current examples of communications on 68 and 69. Bottom of 69, there's a magazine article that's out now, the current edition of the Woodlands Community Magazine. That's a township publication. We talked about residential water use in 2025 and noting that we did a good job. So, for example, compared to 2024, we used 2% more water despite 32% less precipitation. Probably looking at it similar this year. We'll see. It's been pretty dry thus far, so hopefully keep that wise water use continuing. And just want to note on 70, you've got an in-person outreach calendar for the spring. So, any questions?
Did we find anything more with the resident that reached out regarding some of the functionality and the e-blast links and the annual update? Did anything more come from that? Or was it?
I don't know what that issue was. We tested that.
Just a request or something.
Yeah, I went through all those QRs again. Everything functioned. Sometimes it's the camera. I have encountered similar issues in the past with QRs, not ours, but others. Ours were functioning fine on multiple different cameras with Apple and Samsung.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 18, review and discuss proposed SJRA GRP global amendment to the GRP contract, pages 73 and 76.
Yes, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Aubrey Spear and his team came and talked to the group about just giving some insight into kind of how what they were dealing with during the settlement, and then also some details about the global amendment. We submitted our comments from directors that I'd received as well as mine to SJRA. So they reported that they are going through the comments from all the GRP participants that put in comments, and they're evaluating those comments. And then I expect probably in the next few months, if there's any adjustments, verbiage adjustments to the agreement, we'll see that. And then likely later in the year, there'll be a vote and the MUDs will give their direction to the Woodlands Division for that, if it comes to that. So no other action on that this time.
Okay. Trustees report.
Yes, see pages 77 through 79. There's two items I'd like to highlight. First up, the trustees did approve an amendment to the Woodlands Division R&R budget to move funds from land acquisition in the vicinity of wastewater facility number 1 to the renewal of the lift station 5 force main replacement project. So that was key to get that. The second one, which I really applaud, and I brought you a thing I was working on. If I could draw your attention to the handout that Shelley kindly made for us. So this it might look complicated, but when you reduce down from 40 plus curves to averages, you start to see some trends pop out. So we're looking at woodland average static water levels and water demand. So the x-axis is obviously time or year. The ordinate on the left is the average static water level derived from all the well data. And the axis, the y-axis on the right is water demand in units of thousands of gallons. To simplify all the data from the wells, I used a 3-point moving average for each well. So that compresses off both ends 1 year at each end, and also creates a slightly different cyclicity. However, the trends really do emerge quite well. And so you don't have a situation where you've got multiple overlap of multiple static water levels. And what we can see is from 1990, which is using more modern data, a very substantial decline in the water levels in the confined Jasper aquifer, especially during periods when the woodlands was growing significantly and a lot more wells were drilled and put online. What is quite arresting, I think, is the time when surface water became available. You see the rebound in both the Jasper and the Evangeline. And although we're getting surface water, what the difference is the rate of decline is significantly lower than the time when we did not have surface water available. Now we've got an opportunity to get more surface water. So that's going to have the effect will be less stress, less pumping of our aquifer. So we will, let's see, so 1 million gallons a day approximately is what the allocation we're seeking. Additional surface water, yeah. So that's 1 million gallons a day of less pumping of the aquifer. So we've got to be treating that as a non-renewable resource, in my view, because we're pumping way faster than the recharge rate. So it's just a matter of time before the pumping water levels get too close to the well screens and the downhole pumps, and that's not a good thing because you'll tear some equipment up if you get that too close. Am I right there, Chris?
You are correct.
Okay, so kudos to all in that effort to improve our utilization of surface water, and I think it's a great direction we're going in. So I just thought I would share that with you, just so you could. This isn't something that just came out of the blue. There's a history to all of this, and people are paying attention, and I think it's going to be very helpful for us in the long run.
Well done.
Thank you.
And if there are any questions on the trustees report. Okay, thank you.
Do we have a need for, any agenda items for the next month?
Well, other than the one that you
Right.
indicated, C.T. Gooding of Bike the Woodlands has come back with an alternative proposal to extend the trail instead of not going under, within the ditch, which would have been a bad event to happen. There's an alternative. I would like to invite him to present that alternative at the next meeting.
Sure.
April. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
You.